Hello, this is Sam Gerrans from samgerrans.com. Today is Thursday, April the 20th, 2023, and today the subject is women must agree that men are women too. Yes, you are living through a clown show. Yes, you're right. Everyone around you is mentally ill, or most of them anyway. The people who are rolling over for the agenda. And if you are able to hold on to your mind and have a memory, then obviously you feel like a bit of a weirdo. If I were you, I'd just embrace it and not worry about it anymore. They're never going to be happy. These people pushing out this agenda, they're never going to be satisfied. It doesn't matter how far you go along with it. They're never going to say, "Oh yeah, that's enough. You can stop now. We're going to stop pushing crazy." No. If you thought, it was bad 20 years ago, now they're after your children, of course. And if you've got any complaints or even questions, well, then you're just a bigot, aren't you? Anyway, what we're going to look at today is an article that I found the other day that I just couldn't resist. And it's from our good friends, The Independent. And I do pick on The Independent. You are right. If you notice that I use The Independent a lot, well, it can't be helped because The Independent's free. I'm not paying for this tosh. And anyway, it's all the same. You can apply the same principles anyway. So here it is. Here's the article. It's called Women's Institute Must Get Over and Get Used to Welcoming Trans Women, says ex-Tory leader William Hague. Now, I was going to apologise about the advertising on this. I can't do anything about it, but I think it's rather appropriate, don't you? Let's have another look at it. Evil Dead Rise. Unfortunately, I don't know if you can actually see this where I am. Yeah, you've got a picture behind me. You can't see it, but of this face, this evil face. I think Evil Dead Rise is about right. Anyway, I haven't read this, and I'm not going to read it twice. Once is more than enough. So we'll have a look at it, see what it's got to say for itself. Lord Hague, this little chap, I remember him when he was about 16. He was good to go to the Conservative conferences. And he was a bit of a sort of a mascot, I think, for a while. But anyway, he's brown-nosed his way up to being a lord. Well, good for you, William Hague. Lord Hague said transgender people are, quote, part of our society now, and the Women's Institute should, quote, welcome new people. Well, the Women's Institute, see the big keys in the name, the Women's Institute. Now, if I wanted to join, I don't know, a Chinese mahjong society, I'm missing a basic qualification. It doesn't matter how well I might play mahjong. I can't play mahjong, by the way, but it wouldn't matter how well that I might play it. I wouldn't have any place in the Chinese mahjong society because I don't meet one of the requirements. I'm a person, that's true, and I can play mahjong, but I don't qualify on the basis of one of the key criteria. Now, one of the key criteria in the words Women's Institute, there's only really one, isn't there? It's not being a person. It's not Person's Institute. It's the Women's Institute. But as I've said before, what they want is they want you to pretend that what you know is true and can patently see is to be the case is not true. It was Voltaire, I believe, who said that those who can make you believe, what was the word he used? Absurdities, can make you commit atrocities. That's a very poignant statement when you think about it. They get you to accept something that you just know isn't true. And it's not true that a man in a dress, it doesn't matter what kind of plastic surgery he's had done to himself, who's got woman face on, it's kind of equivalent to blackface, isn't it? It's got woman face on, that this is a woman. It's not a woman. It's a very sick individual who needs some help and compassion. And I'm prepared to do what is that I can manage to do to help these people. But I'm not going to pretend that you're a woman. I don't care. What about if I were to pretend that I was 6 years old? Although actually, no, that's already been done now. And I don't know. But you can't pretend other things are true. And what you can't do is acknowledge that facts are facts. Well, these people identify as women. Well, I identify as somebody who can tell the difference between women and men. That's me. That's my identification. I wonder if I'll get any special dibs. Anyway, enough of all that. Let's read this. It's a short. We're only going to do it once. Not the Trans Institute, the Women's Institute must, quote, get over and get used to welcoming transgender women, a former Tory leader has said. Yes, but they're not women. They're men. That's what they are. William Hague said transgender people, now they've turned from women into people. Oh, of course they're people, are a, quote, part of our society now, and the organisations such as the WI should welcome new people. Well, let's see if that's really true. What would happen, do you think, if I turned up at a bar mitzvah and claimed to identify as Jewish? Do you think that would work? I don't think so. I don't think I'm getting in. Somehow I don't think they're going to let me in. And as I'm not going to get into the Chinese Mahjong Society, why should a man with mental issues be allowed into a women's institute? And something I was going to say, just to point out that this is an agenda. This isn't just coming out. It hasn't just gone crazy in the last couple of years. They've always been going there. They know where they're going. Because you don't know where it is, it still seems strange. But I mean, if you just read a few books, you work out they've been doing this for like a very long time. For example, they got rid of the Scouts, the Boy Scouts, I think you call them more in America. In England, Scout just means Boy Scout. They got rid of that. Women, girls were insinuated into Boy Scouts. And so there's nowhere where men can just have like their own place. Boys could have their own place. They did it to men, snooker halls, bars, golf clubs. There was nowhere that they weren't pushing women into men's spaces where men just go to get away, basically, and boys go to get away to have conversation and friendship with their own people, with people like them, you see. Well, women are the same. I mean, they used women for a long time with all of this, okay? And whilst it suited them, they were, fluttering about and talking about rights and equality. But now it's turned around to bite them. Now men, or very confused men, are being used and insinuated into their spaces. And quite rightly, they don't like it. Well, we didn't like it either. But my point isn't to invade against women. My point here, at least, my point is to point out that this is a process. It's been going on for a long time. I grew up in the 1970s. I saw the beginnings of this. I saw the beginnings of it. And this is where it's been going. And it hasn't stopped. This is my point. It's never going to stop. It's never, ever, 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 ever going to stop. Not ever. All right. You should welcome new people. His comments came amid a revolt at the 107-year-old organisation over its policy of accepting transgender women. But you see, you have to watch language. They're not transgender women. They're men. All right? It doesn't mean anything, a transgender woman. It's like saying an elephant fish. Well, elephant and fish, it's not quite the same, but I'm using an extreme case to make a point. Elephant and fish are completely different things. Now, an elephant might think it's a fish, or a fish might think it's an elephant, but if they were to act upon that, they would find quite quickly that there was this thing called reality getting in its way. There's no such thing as a transgender woman. It doesn't exist. It's an oxymoron. Well, it's not quite an oxymoron. It's an impossibility. But they want you to pretend that it isn't. Remember, those that can make you accept absurdities can make you commit atrocities. The atrocities are coming. This is the point that I'm trying to make. This is an agenda, and it's never ever going away. It doesn't matter how much you smile blandly and sort of glaze over and sort of stare into the middle distance and pretend it's not happening. It's coming to happen to you. It's never going away. It's never going to stop. A group of WI members have called for bosses to stop allowing trans women, well, they're not trans women, they're men, to join local branches. And they'd have a point, wouldn't they? Because it's called a women's institute. It's for women. Men have got no place there. Doesn't matter how deluded they are, they can't go. It doesn't matter how much I might think that I'm Chinese and I should be allowed to go to the Chinese Mahjong Society. Although I'm mocking this will probably happen soon. They'll come after the Chinese next. I mean, the Chinese kind of quiet and industrious. They've probably left them alone for a while, but their time will come. You're going to have Hindus dancing at bar mitzvahs pretty soon. Anyway, here we are, calling for bosses to stop allowing trans women to join local branches. They also want members to be able to debate and hold a vote on the issue. Well, what is there to debate? I mean, surely I haven't read the Articles of Association of the Women's Institute, but I'm fairly sure they include the word women. Asked about the issue, Lord Hague told Radio Times, quote, "There are some areas where there's been a danger of going too fast. Too fast towards what? Towards a complete breakdown of sanity? Yeah, that's where they're going. Competitive sport is one of them. Yeah, i.e. men and women are different, and men will beat women in every single sport where strength and speed are necessary. all the time. Just going to happen, you see. And yes, and the World Athletics has made clear that women's sport can't be transgender. Well, actually, nothing can be transgender because transgender is a nonsensical term. Otherwise, it would be the end of women's sport. Yeah, it'd be the end of women as well. But that's where it's going. They've got an agenda. You see, they don't need you anymore. So they're just making you crazy. And I think that's quite right. Oh, do you? Thank you so much. But he added, I'm not sure that applies to the Women's Institute, though. Well, I'll tell you why he's not sure. Because in sport, it's completely patently obvious. Because, you know, some chap with a 5 o'clock shadow in the lineup against, you know, it's 5 or 6 women in the 100 meters dash, he's gonna absolutely cream them. The results are obvious. I mean, it doesn't matter how stupid you are, you can still tell the difference between first, second, and third. But in a women's institute, I don't know what they do. Talk about knitting, crochet, and, you know, complaining about their husbands. Well, that it's not really measurable, is it? It's not going to be so obvious. Anyway, let's see what this erstwhile leader has got to say. I'm not sure that applies to the Women's Institute, though. You know, there are transgender people. They have changed their gender. No, they aren't. They don't exist. I don't care how insane you are. I'm not joining you. I don't care how great it is jumping off this particular cliff. You want to jump over it, jump over it. Me, I'm not going to jump over it. If you want to push me, force me at gunpoint, it's completely different. There's a difference between murder and suicide, and I can tell the difference between those two things. This is part of our society now. Well, this is what happens when you give up God, isn't it? You end up where this is just, well, we've had a vote on it, and now we've decided that ducks are duck-billed platypuses. Well, they're not. They're still ducks. There is a difference. Anyway, let's carry on. Finish up with this complete tosh. I don't think there's much of it, which is one of its major advantages. Quote, and I think large national organizations like the WI have to get over that and get used to that and welcome new people. Welcome new people who aren't women. They want you to buy into the delusion, because when they turn around and the cull begins, it's going to be your fault. See, you shouldn't have accepted any of this. And this didn't start this week, this month, last year, the last 10 years. It's been going on for 100 years at least. Feminism was a part of this, and they always start with something which seems quite reasonable. And there's a lot about first wave feminism which seems quite reasonable, but they know where they're going. Anyway, he added, so that would be the side of the argument I'm on. He added, I probably get a lot of angry letters now from WI members, you think? But I would be on that side of the argument. Listen to his language. I would be on that side of the argument. Not I am on that side of the argument. It's very tentative language. I would be in certain circumstances. So I wonder what those circumstances are. The activists calling themselves... activists, yeah, what a word, calling themselves the Women's Institute Declaration are urging the WI to focus on women as a biological sex class rather than as an individual expression of gender. Yeah, i.e. reality as opposed to delusion. It's quite simple. It's interesting. They've called themselves activists, which is sort of radicalized. This is the Women's Institute. I don't know if you're not from the UK. The Women's Institute, it's the wives of conservative husbands taking tea and sandwiches. You don't get much more conservative than the Women's Institute. In a letter, the group said it supports the rights of trans people. This is a nonsensical term. I just want you to just own this one thing. Trans, it's impossible to be trans. It's like saying you're a dog cat. It doesn't exist. Okay? It doesn't exist. It doesn't matter what you do to yourself. This is just a kind of an upgraded version of cross-dressing. That's all it is. We never used to pretend that a cross-dresser was whatever he was, or she, usually he, was pretending to be. But now they want you to pretend. They want you to pretend. They want you to believe that what you know is not true is true. Can you imagine being a child growing up with the adults around you like this? I feel so sorry for the children being brought up by delusional, well, they're basically infants, aren't they? I mean, anybody, if you can't see that this is insane, then you've lost your mind, haven't you? In a letter, the group said it supports the rights of trans people to live safely. Well, why would they not be able to live safely? This isn't the issue. And be treated fairly. Yeah, I treat them fairly. Fairly as people who are, if you want to use the word deserving, I don't really like that word, but okay, let's use it, of an amount of compassion, understanding, and assistance. As I'd feel about, let's say, drug addicts. But I'm not going to agree that being a heroin addict is a healthy life choice, or being that 15 stone overweight is beautiful. But this is what they want you to believe. They want you to accept that it's true. It's not true. It's so evidently not true. And one day when the hypnosis lifts, everyone, let's say they just turn off the whatever it is, the 5G or whatever it is, it's turning people into these nut jobs, and everyone's going to look around kind of blinking in the morning light thinking, what happened to us? Yeah, you went nuts. That's what happened to you. Literally insane. But said, quote, this must not impact the rights of women. Yeah, well, what happened to men when we had women being insinuated into all of our places, all of our spaces? The point I'm trying to make, it's not against women, it's not against trans people, whatever we mean by that, is to show that this is an agenda, and it never ever stops. It was all fine when they were doing it, when they were doing it to white men, and then they were doing it to all men. Now they're doing it to women. They'll be doing it to trans people, homosexuals, sodomites. They'll be doing it to them too, because this eventually will come for everybody. This is my point. It never ever stops. You might feel as if this agenda is protecting you at some point now, you're on the right side of a line. That line is always, always, always moving. It never ever stops. It's never ever happy. The beast must always eat. Originally set up in 1915, the WI has been trans-inclusive for decades. What does that mean, trans-inclusive? It's been accepting of delusional for decades, okay. And formally released a public statement in the 2000s to clarify its position. Yeah, because it's terrified of being shut down as a hate group. The Women's Institute. Again, if you're not from the UK, you don't know what the Women's Institute is. These are not green hair, stone-throwing, tattoo embossed nut jobs. These are twin Seton pearls, ladies sitting around, nibbling at a cucumber sandwich, pouring each other cups of tea. That's what this is. The WI's policy statement that anyone living as a woman is welcome to join the WI and to participate in any WI activities in the same way as any other woman. Well, that's interesting. Well, they're already done then, aren't they? They've already accepted. They've taken the king's shilling. There's no way out of the army now. The WI magazine, WI Life, featured Petra Wenham as its first openly trans cover star in 2021. Oh, well, I didn't know this. See, I'm reading this for the first time. No, they're done. They've already taken the poison. Number 10, that means number 10 Downing Street, has said it's up to specific groups to decide what's right for them. Oh, yeah, is it really? That's not true. We all know that's not true. This is how democracy works, especially in the UK. We pretend you have a choice, but if you don't choose right, we make you choose again until you get it right. And then you don't have any more goes. Just like Brexit, they're going to come back for another vote on Brexit. I think they did it to Denmark, possibly Ireland, could be wrong on Ireland, but they've done it before. Oh, they just didn't quite know how to vote. I mean, if you believe in voting and all this nonsense, I think it's all silly, but that's me. Number 10 has said it is up to specific groups to decide what's right for them, but stress that the starting point must be treating transgender people with compassion. And I agree with that. And part of compassion is understanding what reality is. You see, you as being the person who isn't deluded, and quite clearly unbalanced, you have to hold on to reality to help this person find their way back to it. I was talking to somebody I'm very close with some months ago, and they work in mental health in the UK, and he told me, he accepts that the whole pandemic thing was a farce, but he works with people who are supposed to be mentally ill. I would argue that a lot of actual mental illness is a healthy reaction against an insane society, but that's just me. But he wore a mask in all of the meetings, knowing that it wasn't true. And I asked him why, and his attitude was, well, my job is to make them feel safe, and so I have to make them feel safe, and this is the way I do it. But I thought, no, your job is, if you're helping people with real mental health issues, you don't start by colluding with their insanity as a form of treatment. Anyway, that's just me. The Prime Minister's official spokesman said, quote, on membership of any particular group, that is for the group. But it isn't for the group. It's never for the group. This is complete nonsense. You know what's going to happen to you if you say you don't want trans people coming to you. Just on a quick aside, when we lived in the UK, one of the reasons we left the UK was the kindergarten. They had books in this kindergarten on, I think one was called Living with My Two Daddies or something like this. Books for 3-year-olds. And it was very communistic. It felt really, really scary there. And also, toward the end of the year, because we were there, I think a year and a half, something like that, we were very careful with them. They had a guy who started working there, a man who wanted to work with 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. That was it. We were gone. And I mentioned this to my sister, one of my sisters who works in social services, and her view was, why would you even consider this to be an issue? What kind of man wants to work with very young children? Anyway, there's no saving them. I realise there's no point talking to these people. Just let them die. Just let them kill themselves, because that's where they're going. They can't, there's no way out of this. If you're that crazy, well, I'm just not going to waste my time trying to help you. The Prime Minister said it's vitally important that transgender people are treated with compassion at all times as a starting point. Yeah, they keep using this compassion. I noticed in America there's actually the weaponization of compassion. What about compassion for people who don't want their children indoctrinated with all of this nonsense? What about compassion, that's the big thing, for people who actually want to hold on to reality and not be bullied into the ground? No, this is the weaponization of compassion. That's what it is. They use these words, but if you don't want to, you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice, and if you don't make the right choice, they're coming after you. They're going to take away your money. They're going to take away your reputation. They're going to call you a lot of names, and eventually they're going to lock you up. Okay, that's it. What about compassion for those people? No, isn't going to be any. Obviously, it's right that government provides the necessary guidance and guidelines. And when necessary, laws. Yeah, it's going to be necessary all the time. You can count on that. On this issue. But it will be for specific groups to decide what's right for them, as they keep saying. But that's not true, and it's not true. The Women's Institute is terrified that it's going to be shut down, and so it has to go along with this agenda. How is this different to Nazi Germany? I'm not talking about the kind of the actual specifics at this point. I'm talking about the imposition of unreality. Again, I repeat, Voltaire, those who can make you accept, can make you imbibe, imbue, carry absurdities, can make you commit atrocities. This is the point. We've been here before. We had it in Nazi Germany. We've had it in Soviet Union. We had it in communist China. We've had it, the Salem witch hunts. It's all the way through history. The Catholics did it. In fact, I would argue that this same kind of mindset of people who are the implementers of this, and you just roll over and roll over and roll over until eventually they're torturing you to death. That's where it's going to go. I don't know about torturing, but certainly they're going to get rid of you. And you have to argue. You have to admit, is it really worth keeping you lot around? If you're that stupid, why do you deserve to exist if you're really this dumb? I'm looking at it from the ruling elite's point of view here. They must just sit there. Can you imagine? They're probably sitting there in Versailles or wherever it is they hang out, the Rothschilds, mansion, incredible opulence. They must just sit there, sort of swishing a fine brandy around the bottom of a glass as they sort of puff on a wonderful cigar from Cuba, thinking, you know what? These people are so stupid that we're actually doing them a favour. We can convince them of anything. There's nothing they won't accept. Absolutely nothing. Why would you not think that? If you were a member of that group and thinking in those terms, you have to admit they've got a point. They must think, let's tell them that they can't eat meat anymore, that they've got to eat cockroaches. Oh, yes. Oh, I should think that'll take about 6 months to roll that one out. They're laughing at you. They despise you. And you got to admit, they've got a point. Anyway, that's the end of that one. Details of where I upload to how you can join my Substack and Telegram channel, support my work and download my books free are in the description below. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.